Have you ever tried a garden hack from TikTok or Instagram and thought, why does my garden look worse? Today, we're testing the viral garden advice everyone swears by and finding out what actually helps your plants and what's just garden folklore. So, Team Replay, I appreciate you being in the comment section. Please, let's have a conversation. Which garden hack have you tried that didn't work or totally surprised you?
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to the very first episode of Roots and Rambles. This is going to be a new reoccurring segment here on Shawnee Grows with me and Robin from Robin Gardens. So what we're going to do is when we have this series, we're exploring the roots of garden advice, where it came from, why it spread, and then ramble our way through what's true, what's misunderstood, and what's straight up myth. So today's topic, viral garden hacks, busted or backed by science. Some of these sound helpful, some are half true, and a few might actually hurt your garden. So we're going to say hello in the live chat and hello to you in the replay. We have Ecology Today, Dusty Flats, South Florida Sunshine Tropicals, Fuzzy Adventures. Adam is here. Troy is here. We appreciate all of you. Big Wheel Dog 82 in the soil. Anastasia's here. Miss Sharon is here. So I'm going to try and grab your guys' comments as we talk about this topic. If you have things to say about the myths we're busting, of course, shout it out. And if you have some other myths that you want to go over, if we have time, we can definitely talk about those. Hello, Diva in the Dirt. Good to see you here for this. Now I'm going to start the myths with putting matches in water feeds plants sulfur. The verdict on this is it is mostly false. Okay, so why did it go viral? Have you ever heard of this? Let me know in the comment section and here in the live chat. Sulfur is a nutrient that we hear about. So people were thinking that we could just take this shortcut, right, to provide for our plants. In reality, modern matches contain very little sulfur. The amount is negligible and inconsistent, and so it's not a reliable fertilizer. The better option is balanced fertilizer or sulfur amendment if a soil test shows deficiency. We don't want to just throw things at our soil when we don't know. Now, where did this come from? Old matches contained sulfur, and sulfur is a micronutrient, so soaking matches became a folk fertilizer. Well, why did it stick around? It's a household item. It feels like secret knowledge, right? When we feel like we're shortcutting things, we think it should stick. It survived even after the match ingredients did change. So in the chat, does anybody ever heard of that before? Let me go through. Hello, hello. Kevin is here. Good to see you. So, Robin, what do you have for a myth?
Well, eggshells. Two ways I've seen it out there. Number one, to fix your calcium deficiency, to solve blossom end rot, and to deter snails or slugs in your garden. So, will eggshells fix a calcium deficiency? Yes, but it's going to take a long time because eggshells take an immense amount of time to break down and become available for the plant to uptake as calcium. Here's some of my crushed eggshells. You can see Those are just simply crushed in a bowl. Those will take about 3+ years to become plant available as calcium in your soil. Something I do to make it happen a little bit faster is I send them through my Vitamix, and I get kind of a, can we see that? A
There you
powder.
go. Yep.
And so, what do we know about making it smaller? If it's smaller, it's got more surface area. That means the microbes and the acids in the soil are going to break it down faster. So, you might get calcium from this in 3 months. More likely, it's going to take up to 12 months for this to become a calcium additive in your soil. If you want something much more dependable, I'd go with this product. This is an OMRE certified calcium. It's called CalMag. Doesn't take much, half a capful in a couple of gallons of water, and water it in, and you're going to get, calcium to your plant. But let's talk about why blossom end rot really happens. It really happens because you've got calcium in your soil, but it's not being able to be uptake by your plant. And that's because of inconsistent watering. So the first thing that you should look at if you have blossom end rot is consistent watering. The second thing that I've seen out there with regards to eggshells is to deter slugs. And you see them crush them and sprinkle them around the edge of the plant to keep the slugs from going over the little trail that you've left there. But sounds logical, right? The biology actually says otherwise, though, because that slimy trail that a slug leaves behind, well, that's like a lubricant. And so that allows them to just slither over whatever is in your garden, including eggshells, to get to the goods. So, no, eggshells really are not a slug deterrent. So back to you, Shawnee, for the next one.
Yeah, we have Miss J.K. Gardner saying hello. Good to see you. And then Big Will Dog says, I feed powdered eggshell to my worm bin and in turn is added to my soil eventually. We have Teagsy joining us for this show. And again, Big Will Dog 82 in the soil. Eggshells and vinegar will give water soluble calcium as well. And
that crushed eggshells acting like sand. When you're adding sand to your worms, it helps with their digestion, actually, right, Will?
Southwest Sunshine Tropical says CalMag is great. Looks like Fox Farm liquid nutrients. And even Teagsy says that CalMag is some good stuff. Now, I have never used CalMag before. We have Howie from Food Forest Permaculture. Welcome to this. Speaking about a way to stop slugs by using wood ash and biochar. Adam says half a cap full of Happy Frog. I think we have a new how fast can a woodchuck chuck wood?
I'm pretty consistent. I do a day a week called Lotions and Potions. So my philosophy is little and often when it comes to any kind of water soluble in my garden. Sunday's our day. Sunday's Lotions and Potions, and both Al and I go out. He's got his plants that he does, and I've got my plants that I do. Mostly I'm doing the vegetable and fruit gardens because, I kind of know who needs what.
Good evening, Andrews, Northwest Coins, and we also have Dave Knight joining us for this live show. Dusty Flat says it does take longer for organic fertilizer to start working. A lot of the things that we're going to say is just add it to your compost and let that break everything down. And then we can add it to our gardens.
Oh, definitely. Great advice.
Carol has seen the vinegar trick. Where you put crushed eggshells in vinegar, and once it stops bubbling, So that could take a couple days, a couple weeks. Then it's ready to use, and you're using a very small diluted amount in your soil. I don't remember the ratios like at all, so I'd have to look it up. Dusty Flat said, I wonder if powdered eggshells would cut like diatomaceous earth when slugs and stuff walk over it.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried this, the crushed eggshells, and I am not prone to a lot of slugs. Only a couple times in all my years have I had much of an infestation, and it didn't work. Beer traps worked, but not
Yeah,
the
we
eggshells.
hear a lot of things about slugs. It almost can be an entire show, just slug patrol, you know?
Yeah.
So, if we break down another myth, let's see if anyone's heard of this one. Vegetable cooking water is free fertilizer. Well, it can depend. Just like, yeah, but, well, did you know in the gardening world? So, it's true if the water is unsalted and veggies were lightly cooked, and it can turn into a false if it's heavily salted because that's going to damage your soil life. And we're not taking it directly from, I just steamed and boiled something in it out into the soil. That is very hot water. It's going to shock the roots of your plants. If you're growing something there, it's going to hurt your microbiology. So, the bonus tip for that is let it cool completely before using, but then we're not wasting, we're still using it. And where did it come from? Cooking leaches nutrients into water, so gardeners started reusing it to avoid waste. Why did it stick around? Well, it's a sustainable mindset, right? It works if it's done right. It's easy to get wrong too, but I has anybody used their vegetable cooking water and saved it and cooled it and then was like, okay, we're going to go put it on the compost or the garden? Bowtie Life is here. Welcome to the show. Good to see you. Oh,
I
he's
actually have,
okay.
especially like potatoes, because it seems like, there's a lot of good starches and things in the water. It's easy enough to just let that cool all the way down and throw it on the compost, right?
Yeah, I like that. If I didn't salt it, I could definitely set it out on the deck. And right now, I mean, pretty soon here, the high is going to be 0 in a couple days. It's going to cool down really fast and I can dump it out somewhere. Dusty Flat says maybe alum powder would pucker them up. Bowtie is catching up, so he saw that new intro. If you haven't seen our intro, you can watch it in the replay after this. Big Will Dog 82 in the soil says, again, I use the vegetable water in a compost, then feed it to the worm bin. The ecology today is J. Dixon. The common vinegar eggshell ratio for making a water soluble calcium fertilizer is either 1 part crushed eggshells to 10 parts vinegar, 1 to 10 by volume or mass, or equal parts 1. There's a ... here. Is there some more? Storms Radios is here. Good to see you. Oh, Eddie Lyles, welcome to this. Teagsy says, I definitely use the water I blanch my brassicas in. It's one of those rhythms. Like once you get used to it, it's just like when you switch to composting, you just know we have a compost bowl when we're cutting and prepping veggies and whatever else you may compost, you compost however you wish, right?
Right.
You just would get used to it. Ecology Today says, I randomly add the veggie cooking water to my perennial bush flower bed. It sounds like a good place. Carol says, yes, potato skins was supposed to be excellent and used like a tea for one of the letters from my NPK that make your own live show that she did. Big Will Dog 82 in the soil says the salt is only beneficial if it's sea salt, not iodized. Table salt, plants and soil can metabolize sea salt's nutrients when not too strong. I'm thinking pasta water. Obviously, most of us salt
Sure.
that
Yeah.
heavily, so that's a no, right? That's more of
Right.
a we're not using that.
I think I also do the beet water too when I boil beets, uh,
Okay.
because I pull the skins off and I throw the skins in there in the water, let it cool down, and then throw it on the compost pile.
Diva in the Dirt says, I've washed my veggies in a bowl and thrown that water onto my gardens. Oh, that's a good one. You know, when
Definitely.
you wash things, yep. Diva says, I have used my veggie water many times. So you've already got a good routine going. Ecology today, continuing on, depending on desired strength and method with the reaction fizzing as the calcium carbonate dissolves, and calcium acetate, often used diluted in water for plants. Rice, water, or coffee, Andrew is saying, to add to plants. We are going to, spoiler alert, talk about coffee in a little bit. Bobby is here. What's up? Good to see you for this. Frenchie Sandy is here. I add eggshells to my compost just because better than throwing in the garbage.
Definitely.
Absolutely. One of those things that's going to be common today is add it to the compost. Teagsy says, I also use my whey after making cottage cheese, but I dilute it first. It's great when we kind of understand the science or biology or the effect of things that we can keep reusing. Okay, so I got through the comments. Let's head back over to Robin for the next myth.
Okay, the next myth is, you've probably seen it on Instagram, TikTok, where they take the bottoms of green onions and the bottoms of a celery stalk, a bunch of celery, and then they put it in water to get roots to grow and then grow onto a plant. So, does it work? Well, yes, but um, you're going to get, with the green onions, probably a pretty good product. It's going to You're going to get 2 or 3 more cuts of the greens off the top. They're going to kind of get weaker each time, but you will get regrowth. With the celery coming from the grocery store, sprouting it, yes, it probably is going to work, but that is going to take a month of Sundays, right? So by the time you get it rooted and can get it out in the garden to sprout for you, it's going to take a long time. And then you are going to have an inferior celery for eating. Now you're going to have some of that nice, yummy, like fresh little growth that's towards the center of the stalk with the leaves, be yummy in a salad, maybe in a soup, but you're not going to get good production from that. I have taken the celery that I've grown, and about 2 inches above the earth, I've whacked it off, used the celery, and then let that regrow, and it works. And it's going to be much faster. I've also done it with the green onions, left about, a half to an inch of the white part of the green onion down at the bottom and let it grow. And then, I have more of the greens to eat. So, yes, it does work, but you're not going to have the same result as if you grew it from seed.
Going in the comments, Teagsy says, that's so funny. I'm doing that with celery now. It grew for me when I transplanted it outside. Now, since you're regrowing a celery from a root that's already made a celery, it's now possibly going to think it's on its second year, which is a biennial. And so you could see it bolt and make a flower, and then you'll just have celery seed, which is not a bad thing.
That's true. It is a biennial. You are so correct, Shani.
Jay is saying green onion and celery roots. I have windowsill sprouted it, and some got minimal fresh regrowth for salads. Like Robin mentioned, it takes so much time when you do it that way. It is faster out in the garden life, soil life. It's already grew there, and you're just cutting it. You're not like moving things around and replanting things. Big Will Dog saying cut and come again works best. Teasy says so true. You only get the tender pieces when regrowing celery from cuttings.
It's a bonus. I mean, if it's already there, you don't have anything else planned for the spot, let it go.
Green onions are really popular to do this with. We see it a lot. Diva in the Dirt says, with my green onions, I let them root and then plant them outside. I can have green onions all through the winter.
Oh, you're so lucky. Jealous, jealous, jealous.
Carol is saying, yep, I keep the green onions in my kitchen, just like snipping and topping the greens on my stir fry, like lunches.
So, Carol, do you do that in just water or do you root them in soil?
Now we are close to 1,500 gardeners, so if you are growing with me this year, hit the like and subscribe, share it with another gardener. I was looking to see if Carol was answering. Are we ready for the next myth, everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was the teaser. We're going to talk about some coffee grounds, okay? Coffee grounds make soil acidic. Is this true or false? The verdict is it's mostly false. The reality of it is used coffee grounds are close to neutral. Fresh grounds, I don't know anyone that's ever said, I'm taking freshly bought coffee grounds that have never been used to make coffee and throwing it in my garden. But if you're one of those people, I'd like to talk to you. Fresh grounds are acidic, but it's not enough to change soil pH meaningfully. So the better use, which is the theme of the night, is compost it. You can use a half an inch of used coffee grounds as a mulch layer, and of course, adding it to worm bins. Where did this come from? Well, coffee tastes acidic, so people assume that using the grounds must be acidic too. And why did it stick for all these years? Well, the sensory logic of taste equals pH, popular in zero waste gardening, half true but misunderstood. So tell me, do you have your own coffee grounds that you put out somewhere? Maybe you're the person that goes to the coffee shop and asks for the sacks or whatever bins or bags of the used coffee grounds. And how are you using it? Do you use coffee grounds, Robin?
Oh gosh, yeah. Hey, when my girlfriend owned the coffee shop here in town, I would take a 5-gallon bucket at the beginning of the day and then go pick it up at the end of the day. And she would almost get it full up for me. And she'd throw like eggshells and, other bits of foods and things in there as well. And nothing fires up your compost bin like a bucket of grounds from the coffee shop.
Really?
Yeah.
I
And
didn't know it did that.
And Starbucks will package it up for you in their old coffee uh, can bags and give it to you. You just have to ask if they don't already have it out. They won't necessarily do it out of season, but in season they'll do it.
Big Will Dog 82 says coffee grounds make a smelly pile smell like coffee.
Yeah.
Back
Mostly,
to
honestly, mine smells like tea because
yeah.
in this house we make mostly tea, drink mostly tea.
Yeah, we're heavy on the tea this winter as well. Bowtie Life says I tried planting the bottom half of a moldy onion last year. I think something ate it. Carol says I have stale coffee. Was going to use it as a cold brew and pour the cold brew like acidic water treatment. I throw the cold compost methods and beds. We had Dusty talking about her rootaloo. Not so much a hack, but potted geraniums do better in my root cellar than bare root, and I think I will try it with celery and Brussels sprouts for seed. Oh,
Mm.
like, okay, that's interesting to think about. You would
Oh,
keep it in a pot of soil
yeah.
and then take it out when it's safe, right?
I had celery come back one year after it had been mounded up in the garden, and then it made seed for me. And I tried to purposefully do it for this year, and it didn't come back. So every year's different.
Dusty says, reminds me that my folks used to put a whole egg with shell in the coffee pot.
Yeah, we had a relative who did that, and my parents swore that it was the best coffee on the planet.
I've never heard of this before. And then you drink the coffee?
Well, you have to put it through a strainer, but yeah.
What? Eddie says, I've seen people swear by Tums in the tomato planting hole for blossom end rot. Oh, Eddie, we covered a fantastic conversation about blossom end rot just a little bit ago, but I don't know if you were in here yet. What do you want to say about Tums in the planting hole, Robin?
I would say get yourself some CalMag.
There you go.
This is I mean, I am not endorsed by this company, but this stuff is good. and you know that it's going to put the right stuff down to do
It's
the
made
job.
for plants,
Yeah.
okay? Plants do not have the same stomachs as us. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Kevin says, "Robin, question, if I have a 5-gallon bucket, approximately how many leaves would you add for the proper CN ratio?"
Carbon to nitrogen ratio. I don't get too hung up, Kevin. I used to, but now it's whatever I've got to put in my compost, and I just keep putting it in there. I do store some leaves, about 5 crushed leaf in bags in the shed, so that I've got some browns in the summer when browns aren't so readily available. I'll also rip up, like grocery bags and cardboard egg cartons, and I'll put that in there too to be my carbons. But just do it. It works, even if the ratios aren't perfect.
Bowtie Life says, "All our coffee grounds get composted." We have Woof and Snort listening in. Thank you for being here. Hit the thumbs up. Adam says, "My eggshells and coffee grounds go to the chickens. Afterwards, it's added to the compost in another form." The egg coffee is Swedish coffee. So it's like a raw egg inside the shell, and you're putting it in the bottom of the pot, and you're making your coffee. So now it's a hard-boiled egg, and you're drinking the coffee?
I think that they actually break the egg in there.
Okay. Wow.
I never watched it being done, and my parents just always talked about it.
I think it's fascinating that more than one person has heard of this. Good night, Howie. Here is his message for the night. Good night, Earthling. Soil is made in layers of green and brown lawn clippings, leaves, coffee, tea, round leaf, wood chips, seaweed, dead goldfish, bad neighbors, kitchen waste, all the things. Thank you. Big Will Dog 82 in the soil says, like anything put into soil, it has to be broken down by biology to be useful. That's right. We need it to be bioavailable for the plant to actually eat it.
You bet.
Um, Carol says Tums have aluminum in them. Don't use them. It's a toxic heavy metal.
Oh, good
Quickly,
point.
do we want to answer this? Storms Radio says Robin Garden's off topic. I know, but how is your arm?
Uh, you know, it's slow here, and it's still pretty useless, but you know, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. A lot of YouTube watching and a lot of mahjong, and just trying to let it heal.
Brooke Trout is joining our Myths, Hacks, and Facts show. Thank you for being here. Kevin said, thanks. I had to ask because I've only used cereal rye as a nitrogen source. Frenchie Sandy said, my aunt made it. I don't know the method. Have tasted it and it's good. Wow. I just can't believe it. Okay, so Dusty says, yes, the egg is just dropped in the bottom and I think it cracks on its own. What? It's an interesting color. We use coffee to dye eggs for Easter. Like that's a thing you can do.
Sure.
Jay did look it up. It looks like putting a whole egg in a coffee pot refers to Swedish egg coffee, a traditional Scandinavian method where a raw egg, shell and all, is mixed with grounds and water, boiled, and then settled with cold water, resulting in a smooth, less bitter, clear coffee by binding grounds and impurities. It's a historical technique used by immigrants in the Midwest. There's some kind of cowboy coffee egg thing now that I'm thinking about it. The egg collects the grounds, so then you don't have grounds in your cup, like if you're out camping. I think I've heard of that form.
My parents said it was the best coffee. This was the neighbor who was really, we called her relatives. I called her grandma because my grandparents weren't around when I was a kid. So that's how she made coffee.
So we're going to wrap up the coffee part and go into Robin's next myth.
Okay. The next one is, do more leaves equal a bigger harvest? And, I'm going to be controversial with some people because I know there are a lot of gardeners who like to strip the leaves, especially of their tomato plants, down to 1 liter. But I have found in all my years that You got to leave those little solar panels on there because that's exactly what they are, little solar panels that photosynthesize. And if you have more solar panels, you're going to have bigger fruit, better roots, bigger bulbs, whatever, stronger plants, and better, ultimately fruit set, right? Um, think about an onion. An onion has all those leaves, right? Each one of those leaves represents one ring in the bulb of the onion. So the more leaves you can get happening, the bigger the onion, the bigger the bulb. Um, Same thing with the tomatoes. Now, I'm in there pruning away just like the next person when powdery mildew season happens and I need to get some airflow. But I leave most of the plant there on my peppers and my tomatoes, and I have really good success doing it that way. So I would say yes. Um, so you're kind of playing a bit of a magic at the beginning of the season. It's pretty easy with onions. You feed them the extra nitrogen. I do it weekly until they start to bulb. With the tomatoes and the peppers, you want to give them that extra nitrogen until they really start flowering. But, you can go overboard. So little and often, little and often.
Yeah, I'm gonna say hi to Vase Place here, and then I'm gonna say, are you growing it for the roots, the shoots, the fruits? Kind of comes into play here.
Sure.
So she had really good examples of when you want more leaf growth, obviously with your greens as well, your lettuce, your chard, your kale. Now, an example that I can think of off the top of my head where we don't want more leaf solar panels is sweet potatoes. Sometimes they can be over fertilized and all they do is grow green growth and they never form that potato. I don't know if there's any other plants that you guys can think of where we don't want huge solar panel leaves. We don't want to keep feeding them in that form.
Well, like carrots. Carrots, we know they do better in a lower nutrient soil. But, the big ones that we find get, trimmed like the tomatoes, I say, leave those solar panels.
Yeah, Frenchy Sandy saying only removing the leaves, I'm guessing on the tomatoes we're talking about here, that are touching the dirt.
Good
That
point.
is a good point. I agree. It's so when the
So
rain falls or when you're watering and the soil is splashing and it can get on that leaf and like diseases can form. And so if you just take those ones off,
much better.
you have a healthier plant, a healthier chance. Now, something I heard the other day was the older the plant is, the more susceptible it is to getting sick, where a younger plant can recover easier. And I thought, oh, I would have thought of it the other way. I would have thought of it as the older plant has been there and has been established and knows the soil and has had all those conversations through the root rhizophagy, and it's like, well, no, the younger one has more strength, I guess, or more ability to put on new growth and to come back from something getting at it.
Yeah, I think just, keep them healthy. Keep your soil healthy and your plants are going to be healthy, right?
Yeah, it really comes down to the soil food web and everything. Big Will Dog 82 in the soil says onions only get pruned when growing inside to keep them upright. Outside they grow as large as they want. Tomatoes clipped to cleanly trellis. Oh, okay. If you're versus like I have some that I just let grow on the ground. Um
That's
yes.
that's how nature did it for years, right? We're the ones that
Oh,
trellis them and
right.
cage them.
We wanted to start getting things up off the ground. Vase Place is reminding us that you can eat the leaves on the sweet potato, and air circulation is important depending on where you live, way more important than others.
Sure. The Brits,
Frenchie,
that's why they, there's a lot of blight. So that's why they often trim to the single leader.
yeah, know your area for growing. Talk to other gardeners near you. Adam says, I made the mistake of trying a single liter on my tomatoes one year. It's so hot here. They need the shade, the leaves, the solar panels to protect the fruit. Love this statement right here.
Sun scald. You don't want any sun scald.
I
Boy,
love
this
that
summer
everyone's talking. Go
I
ahead.
had a lot of sun scald on my blackberries this year.
On the berries themselves?
Yeah,
What do you
it's weird. They kind of get tan. They taste
so
fine, but
you put up a cloth and everything though, don't you?
I didn't, not for the blackberries. I
Oh.
will for, some other things that are getting hammered, especially the greens. You gotta give them some shade.
Now this next one, I think some of the folks in the chat in the comment section might have something to say about it. So we're gonna do banana peels. Banana peels boost flowering and fruiting. Is this true? Half true, half hype, because reality is bananas contain potassium, yes, but the peels break down slowly. The nutrients aren't immediately available. So putting peels in shallow soil might actually attract unwelcome wildlife, your gnats and pests. Small amount of bioavailable nutrients of potassium in the banana peel. Now we have seen where you put it in water and it gets really stinky and you're fermenting it and now you have this broken down. Like again, fermenting is there's organisms in there eating it and consuming it and then it's in the water. So then it is a little bit more bioavailable. Now, the much better approach is the composting of it. Throw those banana peels in your compost. Again, the soil is much different than our stomachs, okay? Using balanced organic fertilizer when plants need it would be your best bet because, like, when you have a short growing season, you don't have time to wait for things to break down. You kind of need it right now. So, where did this come from? Well, the bananas are high in potassium, and potassium supports flowering and fruiting. So, it's stuck around because that sounds like it makes sense. But really, when you look at the biology of things breaking it down, the compost is the more logic answer. And we always are trying to look for shortcuts in life, aren't we? So I'm gonna head over to the chat and see if anyone's talking about bananas at us here. People are commenting about the blackberries. Bowtie says I've never had my blackberries scalded by sun.
Yeah.
Dusty tomatoes sunburn here if grown as single liter. Bowtie says we put 3 bananas in compost every day. Everything fruits and flowers. It must work. The banana peels are an insect farm. Yes, they are. And this is a good tip. Big Will Dog 82 in the soil says worms love bananas. They'll break them down fast. Have a good evening. Teagsy 7 a.m. comes fast. You get your rest so you can grow more skin and blood for your body. Um, Andrew says we get wild berries, blackberries, blueberries, and salmon berries. Nature waters them. Even the wild greens we pick or others we eat, we know the time of the year to gather. It's good to be connected and in tuned with the nature around you and the free food. Okay, it looks like we're back to Robin.
Back to me. Okay. The next hack I've seen out there, and this goes back for a lot of years, but it comes around again, is using branches and canes from your raspberries in the soil to support things like peas. Does it work? Yeah, it works really, really well. I did this one year, and the peas actually did very well because they're climbing up that branch and they've got all kinds of choices of, little tendrils to wrap around. Sometimes the metal trellises that I give them, they don't like as much. I'll put some fish line woven in there too, and they tend to grab onto that. But the spent raspberry canes and tree branches, they work great. Plus, it's kind of charming. It gives kind of a nice natural feel. Um, and bonus, they're free, right? Free's good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so I say they work. I'm going to give you one caution. Don't use a fresh pruned branch to do the job. Go out and get the old ones from the woods or from the back of the shed that have been sitting there and are well brown. Because if you take a fresh one, you could be doing a propagation rather than just a support for your peas.
Beverly Moffat, welcome to the show. Tigsy says, before I leave, I use my banana's leaves to make a 33-gallon bin of banana juice to water my garden. Who has used sticks? Big Will Dog 82 in the soil. Yep, I did it last year. The limb trellis even survived a few storms with no issues. See, that's a concern I have because we get 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts out at the garden. And so using a dried deadwood, I would have to pick one with a bigger diameter, I feel like, than most, so it stays strong.
Or,
And
or,
then
or get a bunch of inches down into the soil.
bury it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it has a good like foundation, right? Carol says, I use banana peels in multiple ways. Bowtie says, my cucumbers climb the blackberry vines after the blackberries are done for their harvest. Then an Everglades tomato grows under all that and turmeric in the ground. Yes, Bowtie had 45 pounds of turmeric.
So if you another way to take branches another step, I have a video out there how we made some obelisks, teepee structures out of branches up in Wisconsin. They were very, very strong. So I've got a couple of videos out there that show them if you want to have a look, and you can see me constructing them.
Okay. This next one it has been talked about a lot in the gardening world, but possibly not the way I'm going to talk about it. So please tell me how you hear about Epsom salt in the garden. Does Epsom salt make tomatoes sweeter? Adding Epsom salt to tomatoes will not turn a sour tomato sweet. Flavor comes from genetics, ripeness, sunlight, balanced watering, not the magnesium that you possibly could be getting in a unscented, unfragranced Epsom salt. It actually, if you put too much of it, it's going to throw off nutrient balances. Sweetness is grown, not sprinkled. So where did this come from? This started because magnesium is a real plant nutrient, and stressed plants can taste worse. So people connected magnesium to flavor and assumed more equals sweeter. It stuck around because it's one of those cheap, easy fixes that sounds scientific and was passed down in forums like Facebook groups. So now you know the next time you hear somebody talking about Epsom salt, you can go, nope, we heard it. Shawnee Grows and Robin Gardens busted it.
Yeah.
Dusty Flats says, will you cover Epsom salt, aspirin, and milk? Is this something that you put all together? Do you know anything about this, Robin?
Okay, aspirin, they crush it up and put it in a spray bottle with water and spray it on the plant. It's supposed to help it be stronger. Like M.I. Gardner has done an episode on that one before. I've never done it myself.
No, me neither.
I think Gary Pilarczyk has also done a thing on, using aspirin. But I can't speak to it because I've never done it myself. Now, milk, yeah, I have done milk, a weak solution of milk with water as a powdery mildew remedy. And yeah, it works. The whey in the milk will work. It's not my favorite, but hey, it's cheap. And yeah, it does work.
Yeah, it's so the milk, did you use just the milk or did you let the milk separate from the whey and you strained it and only used the whey?
No, I use the milk.
Okay. I've heard people say, I don't want my garden smelling like that, you know. And that's it's your garden. It's your playground. You decide. Are you using this as a preventative or a treatment?
I've done it both ways.
Okay.
Getting it on there right around the 2-week mark that I know powdery mildew shows up.
Okay.
Um, Basically, you're changing the pH on the leaf, right? So making it inhospitable for those spores to land and colonize.
Wade Rue, welcome to the conversation. Adam says Epsom salt, the fix all is all. We hear about it for a lot of things. Radio Jonesy is here. Hey, after cutting trees down, we use salts, all types, on the live trees stump to kill it off so you don't get regrowth.
Mm.
Dusty says they say aspirin is supposed to boost plant defenses, they say.
Yeah, stronger plant.
Sour milk foliar feed is supposed to be awesome. I've heard a lot of people say, I don't want to do it again because of the smell. Big Will Dog says the whey contains lactic acid bacteria, which will kill mildew, and that would be applied after it rains again. That's going to wash it off, so then you would reapply it, right, Robin?
Reapply for sure.
Jay's coming in with Shawnee, grow your own garden your own way. Play on words there.
Ah, love it.
Oh, I'm glad that Radio Jonesy's been listening and getting some house chores done. Okay. I made it through the chat. That means we're back to Robin.
Okay, let's talk about plastic bottles for cutworm collars. So the hack is to use a plastic bottle around your seedlings to stop cutworms from taking them out, right? Does it work? Yeah, it works really, really well. I had an infestation a few years back and I did not know what was going on, but I replanted, got taken out, replanted, got taken out. Every time that little seedling would pop up, I'd be like, yay, and then boo. But you can use like an old cup, cut a hole, the bottom right out, and then bury that a good inch down into the soil around the plant. I like to use like a clear cup like this or something that lets light through. But the little cutworms can't crawl up this smooth surface and get into your seedling. And they do their dirty work at night when you're not around. You can also use a toilet roll. I've seen lots of people do this for cutworms. Again, you bury it a good inch down in the soil. I just don't like them as much because, you don't get the sunlight to the plant, the little seedling in there. But yeah, they protect them at their vulnerable stage when they're seedlings, and it works great if you do have a cutworm problem. Knock on wood. I really only had them that 1 year.
Now, I've never come across cutworms before. Has anyone here in the chat or in the replay had to deal with this and was able to know that's what was happening? Now, I do peep into other people's gardens from the road safely when driving throughout the town, and there's this gal who always has, it looks like she took a 5-gallon bucket or maybe a pickle bucket and cut the bottom off, and she buries that around her tomatoes every single year. Is that a cutworm preventative, or is there some kind of math on it needs to be so many inches away from the stem of the plant to catch the cutworm from going in?
Right. I don't know that that's for the cutworms, although it would work. I think that's probably more so that she can water, in the zone.
Because, yeah, I thought, well, maybe it's to protect from wind.
When they're
'Cause
young, yeah, it
yeah,
could do that too.
I don't know.
I suspect, don't know, that it's probably for watering to, she can water in that bucket and keep the water in the zone, in the root zone.
I could ask. I could knock on the door and be like, "So I'm looking at your garden every year." So Wade Rue says, "Do you all know how to get rid of slugs in your garden?" We might dedicate a whole show to this because it's been coming up a lot. You'll have to catch the replay. We have been talking about slugs throughout the show. We're not going to repeat it right now, but if you want to catch the beginning to hear after this, it'll help you. Bowtie says, "Not sure I have cutworms, but I put rings around my new transplants and they done get hurt. They don't get hurt anymore. I use old pots with bottoms cut out."
Yeah, roly-polies will go after your seedlings too. So something like this is going to be good to keep the roly-polies from eating your tender seedlings as well until they've just got to get bigger and thick enough that they're no longer those tender yummies that they want. And then you can
Dust,
take them off.
yeah, sorry. Dusty Flats is saying Dad always saved our food and coffee cans to use around transplants. New cans today, you can't cut both ends, and most coffee is actually in bags and plastic now.
Yeah.
Vase Place says, "I used to use the old Dixie cups over seedlings with the bottoms pushed out to keep squirrels and other pests from killing the seedlings." Wade Rue says, "Take a coffee can, put one can of beer in and place in the garden, place on the edge of coffee time for the crawl up." Carol says, "Like that, Robin, and the gallon water jug too." We're talking about cutworms here. Jay says, "Cutworms are the larval stage of various moths known for chewing through young plant stems." Okay, I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Okay.
I didn't know it turned into a moth. Makes sense though. Just below the soil surface, effectively cutting them down, hence the name. These plump, smooth caterpillars, often gray, brown, or green, hide underground during the day and emerge at night to feed, causing significant damage to seedlings in the garden.
Oh, yeah.
Dusty says, "Yes, we have cutworms, not heavy, but it's enough to hit a few. Usually we'll find them just under the mulch." Do they have a season? Is it like if you just don't plant anything till June, they won't get you? When do
Um,
they morph from worm to moth?
the year that I had it was my fall, and I was trying to, get my successions in for the fall. And that's when I had the most trouble.
In
But
the
yeah,
fall.
yeah.
Okay.
It was probably August. Yeah.
DCBs, it's good to see you.
TT
Um,
Junior's here.
what? Hello?
Hey.
Jay says, "When scouting for cutworms, the larvae are typically found within an inch or 2.5 centimeters below the soil surface and a few inches from the base." Okay, so that's a tiny little window. Thank you for the information. Adam says, "Earwigs will go after the seedlings as well."
Yeah, they
Oh, there
will.
he is. GT Junior grows in Alaska. Welcome to our first episode of Roots and Rambles with Robin Gardens. We're going to do this once a month where we unpack gardening stuff. Good night, Frenchie Sandy. Thank you for being here. All right, so that's my turn.
It is.
We're getting into pine needles because I have lots of evergreens, so I needed to know what to do. Now, pine needles have been talked about. The myth is that they can change your soil pH. So, why don't you use them for blueberries? That kind of thing. Pine needles don't significantly change soil pH. Once they fall, they're close to neutral, and any acidity is too mild and slow to meaningfully affect your garden. The soil microbes neutralize them as well. So, they're great as a mulch, actually, but they won't magically turn your soil acidic for the blueberries. They are a mulch that conserves moisture, suppresses weeds, and adds nutrients over time. Pine needles look acidic, but your soil isn't that easy to change. Where did this come from? Well, fresh pine needles are acidic when they're on the tree, so people assume that they stay acidic once they hit the ground. Now, why did it stick around? Visual association. Common advice for blueberries. We hear about it all the time. Repeated for decades without testing. Okay. We now all know that I'm going to be raking up all the pine needles under my evergreens and throwing them in my food forest from now on, right? Let's see what the chat is saying about pine needles. Oh, we got back to coffee cans here. Bowtie says we empty a big one every few weeks. What on earth do I throw? Why are you throwing those all in the recycling? You have free pots. Dusty Flat says, oh, another way to prevent cutworm is to put a large nail, or I think dowel will work, right next to the stem, as they can't cut through the stem. Won't they just go to the other side?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
What? um, Going into here with the chat. What do we got? Big Will Dog says pine needles take forever to break down. Bowtie says pine needles are about the perfect mulch. We use them all over here in Florida by the truckload. Hundreds and hundreds of. Wow, we have massive pine forests just inland here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Am I here? Everyone sees me, right? What? Carol has a technological difficulty there. Ecology Today says, I heart pine needle mulch in my paths. Okay. Robin, did I ask you, do you use pine needles in any form?
I don't have much pine anymore on the property, so I don't. But, up north in Wisconsin, there's, a ton of it, and it's great. I mean, all kinds of trees, deciduous, fir, grow with the pines. So, it's not changing the pH.
Right. And I've heard it over and over again. And I even dug out some books, and I have this one next to me here. It's Gardner Scott's Guide to Raised Bed Gardening, and he even says in here that the pine needles are not going to change the pH and make it acidic. So if you're questioning all of our answers, we have some links in the description, and we're going to go over to Robin now for the next myth.
To bust, huh?
Yes.
Well, duct tape. Duct tape for bugs in the garden. Like on Instagram, TikTok, you see them take the duct tape and wind it around the stem with the sticky side out so that when the bugs crawl up, they get stuck on the duct tape. Well, does it work? Yeah, but hello, it's an indiscriminate killer. It's going to get anything that crawls up and sticks to it, because you know how sticky duct tape is. So, in my opinion, you can cause more harm than good, because you're going to trap your beneficials along with the baddies. And that if it's left in place there, it could girdle the stem of the plant. So maybe not a healthy choice to do it. It gets really sticky and yucky too. But I'm not going to say that tape doesn't have its place in the garden. This is my favorite kind, this, clear packing tape type. It's not as intense adhesive as duct tape is. And what I use this for is I go out and hunt squash bug eggs on the leaves of my squash, and my cucurbits too can get bug eggs. And then I've wrapped it around my hand with the sticky side out, and I get those little clusters of eggs off very nicely with tape. But you know what? I did have, come to think of it, I did have really good use for duct tape in my garden this past year. My big 2 Anaheims that I grew, those big 2 peppers, I had 203 peppers on 2 plants. They got big. They were over 4 foot tall each. And we had a little summer storm, and 2 of the branches on one of the Anaheims were busted. They were laying over slightly, still attached, but definitely big wounds. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so heavy with fruit. I don't want to lose them. So Al went and got some of those, 4 foot green poles, garden poles, and we stuck those well into the earth, and took those branches and foam wired them to those poles. And then I took the part where it had split, the branch had split from the stem, and I duct taped it. I mean, I just duct taped the crap out of it on both of them. And I'm like, what do I have to lose at this point? I've got some harvest to lose if it doesn't work. And guess what? The wounds healed. We didn't lose one pepper, and it worked perfectly. So, duct tape definitely has a place in the garden.
I loved that tip. Now I'm going to go into rocks at the bottom of pots for drainage. What is the verdict on that? Is it something you should be doing or not? Well, the bottom line is you still need drainage holes, people, okay? You can't just put rocks in and not have a hole letting extra water out, okay? So, this actually causes water to collect above the rock layer, making the soil soggier. This results in roots staying wet and potentially getting diseased and rotting. It is recommended to use well-draining potting mix throughout the container instead, and a screen over the drainage holes has been talked about. Now, I use rocks in containers because it adds weight to the container if you live in a windy place. So I have been known to do that. Now, like I said, my container still has drainage holes. The other thing about drainage holes is if like concrete, you're like blocking and plugging the holes. So it's good to have it elevated up using some bricks or stones or whatever you deem. Maybe you have like a cool cast iron plant stand, any of that kind of stuff. So that is my myth. Now I'll head back to Robin.
Okay. So this one you see a lot. It's the vinegar, salt, soap, weed killer trick. Should we use it? Well, yes, but it's an indiscriminate killer, and a very powerful one, actually. So if you make up the solution, and I would suggest if you're going to do it, use like a 5% vinegar. Table salt is fine, and then the soap, don't use like a Dawn dishwashing liquid. Use like a Dr. Bronner's Pure Castile soap, and make it. But if you sprayed it out in the yard and like, you wanted to get this dandelion here and this chickweed over there, you're just going to have big blotches of brown where you sprayed the solution, because it is an indiscriminate killer and quite powerful. So I'd say you're better off, doing it by hand than using that out in the yard. Where I think this is good is between the pavers on your patio, out on your driveway, between, where they grow in the cracks, and do it in the middle of the day when the sun is bright, and you're going to have a very effective weed killer that's much more natural. But, if you use it out in your yard, you got to remember that the salt and the vinegar, that's not good. It's actually rather toxic for the soil in the long run.
A lot of those recipes have it's the 30% vinegar, not the 5%.
The super heavy one, yeah.
Yeah, and what we've used it for is the gravel driveway and pineapple weed and plantain and stuff like that coming up.
Okay.
So it's not going to run off and be near where we're growing our food because, like you said, it doesn't recognize this is a good plant that I want to keep and this is a weed. It's just going in there and taking things out. Now, if anyone has experience with using vinegar on a driveway or patio pavers, the question I keep running into with things is how deep does it go? So, how many times are we applying it? Like you said, it has to be in the sun. That heat, it really helps activate it and get the job done, right?
Mhm.
We have Urban Gardener listening in. Finally got a chance to drop in. Good to see you.
Hi, Nick.
Let's see. Carol says better off using pine bark nuggets, maybe, but I always heard they are acidic too. Oh, she's talking about the pine that we discussed.
Yeah.
Big Will Dog says depends on the size of the rocks used. Medium-sized rocks won't wick water into soil. That was talking about our rocks in the bottom of the container. DCB's public service announcement: dandelions are honeybee food, one of the most crucial. It is often one of the prime pollen sources. It's one of the firsts in the spring, right? Miss Sharon says, oh no, don't spray the dandelions and chickweed, bee food. Ah! A simple, happy life. Welcome to the show. Carol says it is good for a large patch of weeds if you will rake it out after they die off.
You don't have to worry about my yard. My yard blooms purple in the spring right after it blooms yellow because I've got violets and creeping Charlie and dandelions and a number of other things along with the grass.
Big Will Dog 82 in the soil says my weed killer is vinegar, lemon juice, neem oil, and insecticidal soap as an emulsifier. Now, we do have an announcement. There is this channel called The Urban Gardener. There is a new show coming up Monday night, 7 p.m. Central Time, called The Green Room. It is going to be hosted by Natalie and Enoch. And that episode on January 19th, Robin and I are going to be live on the panel. So you have to come by and say hi from Shawnee Grows, okay?
For sure.
If it's scheduled, hit the notify me. I think it might be scheduled. So then it's easier for you to remember. DCB says, awesome. Love the blooms for the bees and other pollinators. Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We've got robins. One more, it looks like.
Yeah, one more. We added a bonus one, and that is plastic forks in the garden. And does it work to keep cats from getting in and using your soil as a latrine? And the answer is, yeah, it works sometimes. But you need to collect a lot of these. So you got to eat, in my case, a lot of takeaway. I've done it. But one thing it did was it took a lot of them to take up the space in the garden to keep them out. And it kind of deterred me too, because I didn't want to get in there and weed around these forks, and disturb them. They were doing a job for me. So I'd say, yeah, they work. But remember, my other problem is squirrels, and both cats and squirrels are smart animals, and they adapt quickly. So it's probably not the best choice. Using something like a mulch with pine cones, bark, sticks, putting down chicken wire flat so that they can't scratch into it to use it as a latrine. Work really good, or maybe even like a motion activated water deterrent probably would be better than the forks. But yes, they do work, or at least partially work.
Yeah, like if you want to have a container on your deck and something's digging in it, maybe a couple forks could go in there and problem solved. The motion activated water thing is a game changer. I keep hearing about it. I just heard about it today. Raccoons, squirrels, rabbits, cats. Has anyone forked their garden ever with this method, not the broad forking?
Besides me. Actually, my friends have the motion detector deterrent, and it is funny to sit through. We would stare through the glass and watch the animals come and be
Yeah, right.
But it's not cheap. At least the good ones are not cheap.
To get it to put it in, because one of the questions was how much water does it use? And if you're going, it's on for 5 seconds and it's a spurt, that's not using a whole lot of water if you're someone who pays for their water bill.
I think theirs held 2 gallons of water, and it was battery operated.
Battery operated. Oh, right. Or
Like
solar.
a
Solar battery?
a
Solar.
solar battery. Yeah.
Yeah. Adam says, I found that straw, pine needles, some sort of mulch is better suited to deter cats. Hey, I don't see the point in spending so much money on plastic forks. I know.
Or eating all that takeaway.
Well,
Well, that might be fun.
no comment. We don't need to, you don't need to know. So when we're talking about garden myth or fact, like going forward, for each hack, we're going to try and remember a rhythm. Ask yourself, where did this idea come from? Why people still believe it? What is it? Why is it still going around? What actually is the thing that happens in the garden with it? Like, put on your scientific cap and all the things that you've learned here together. And does this actually make sense or not? Does it feel like one of those tricky shortcuts that are actually going to cause problems in our garden? So make sure you catch our next Roots and Rambles in February. We're going to try and do this once a month. We are going to unpack winter sewing. So you
Yeah,
know it's going to be full of show and tell during that episode.
lots of it.
The date is to be determined. You all know my life. So once we have a good 4 days ahead of time figured out, announcements will go out. If you want to get an email shawneegrows@gmail.com that you want to have the notifications for when Roots and Rambles is going to be on. If you're already on the email list, I will be sending you this email as well. If you've learned something new, share it with another gardener. The more of us restoring the ground beneath our feet, the cleaner our food and water become for everyone. So, thanks for gathering around. Keep creating, keep experimenting, and keep growing every day in every way.
Bye.